Hi everybody, this is Revise with Dr. B. This is week 6. This is paper 2, so start paper 2, Homeostasis and Response. So I'm going to go through, so the first half is in both combined science and separate biology, and then the second half is biology only. So let's get started. How does this work? Well, I'm going to go through the main points of the topics. I'm not going through everything, just the important bits. I'm going to give you signposts of further resources, so particularly some of my past videos and also where you can get past papers. And I am doing weekly videos, so please do subscribe. So first of all, nervous system. So the nervous system, you need to understand the pathways of stimulus, which is the change in the environment. Receptors, the receptors take in information from the environment, they pass along cells to the central nervous system. The central nervous system coordinates the body's responses, and then effectors bring about a response. So there are two types of effectors, either glands or muscles. And then the response, so the body responds to the stimulus. Key thing is reflex arcs though, so basically the reflex actions of the nervous system are automatic and rapid. They do not involve the conscious part of the brain, so they're important for survival and they help prevent damage to the body. Here's a diagram. I would probably learn how to label this diagram, so you can see from the start there with the match, the receptors pick up the pain, and the pain sensors then converted into a nerve impulse, electrical nerve impulse, traveling through the sensory neuron, through to past a synapse, which is a gap, and then to a relay neuron, and then across to a motor neuron, and down to a muscle, and the muscle contracts, and you move your hand away from the flame. Human endocrine system is basically where you have glands that secrete chemicals, and these are known as hormones. Hormones are carried in the blood to target organs. So the effect caused by the endocrine system compared to the nervous system is much slower, but it does act for longer. Now you will need to know in an exam how to label all of these glands, so it's important you also know their functions. Key thing is the hormones in human reproduction. So if you're doing foundation, they might ask you things about puberty and reproductive hormones. So estrogen is the main female reproductive hormone produced in the ovary. And at puberty, eggs begin to mature and one is released every 28 days. Testosterone is the male reproductive hormone produced by the testes, and it stimulates sperm production. The menstrual cycle. So this is one of the key things I've been going on about in 2025, that this is probably going to come up. So definitely learn all of the hormones, where they are released, and what is their function. Key thing though is graphs, so understanding the graphs that you can see here. So for example, progesterone is there to maintain the thickness of the uterus lining, and it inhibits, so that reduces the release of FSH and LH. You can see here levels of pituitary hormone. So pituitary gland releases FSH, which is a follicle stimulating hormone, and it causes eggs to mature in the ovary, and it stimulates ovaries to produce estrogen. Whereas LH is again released by the pituitary, and it stimulates the release of a mature egg during ovulation. Now estrogen levels, so estrogen released by the ovary causes the lining of the uterus wall to thicken. When it's in high amounts, it inhibits FSH, so it reduces the amount of FSH, and it stimulates LH to be released. Contraception, so you will need to know all the main forms of contraception that are listed here. I would imagine in an exam they will give you information to use, so you're looking at the kind of pros and cons, or the keyword is evaluate. If you're doing higher tier, so this is higher tier for combined and biology, you'll need to know about IVF. IVF treatment is basically using FSH and LH used as drugs, and they basically stimulate the maturation of more than one egg, and it's important you say that, several or many eggs. They're collected from the mother, fertilized by the sperm externally, okay, and the eggs develop into embryos. 1 or 2 embryos are inserted into the mother's uterus, and the embryos are still tiny balls of cells. Again, you need to evaluate the pros and cons. Controlled blood glucose, this is in both combined and in biology. If you're doing foundations here, you don't need to know what happens when blood glucose is too low. You only need to know what happens when blood glucose is too high. So, monitored by the pancreas, and it's controlled by the pancreas. It's an example of what we call negative feedback. So all that means is if one thing increases, then another thing will decrease. So for example, if your blood glucose increases, then insulin is released to reduce your blood glucose back to normal. So if we look at the diagram, you can see the pancreas. So when blood glucose is too high, insulin's released, and then glucose is moved into from the blood into cells, and excess glucose is then converted to glycogen. Now notice that word glycogen. You need to learn that word, and it's converted into glycogen in the liver and muscle cells for storage, reducing the blood glucose so it goes back to normal. If your blood glucose is too low, then your pancreas detects this and glucagon is released. So glucagon is a hormone, and then it converts glycogen into glucose. So again, be careful with those words. Glucagon is the hormone, glycogen is stored glucose. Anyway, it converts it into glucose and it's released into the blood, and amino acids and fats are broken down. Type 1, type 2 diabetes, please do learn about those. There's some main factors about those. Okay, biology only, so if you're doing combined, I'll see you soon. Right, so biology separate. Structure of the eye, definitely be able to label the eye. Okay, so key things are things like the cornea, which is transparent and curved, and it can actually change the direction of the light. You've got the lens, so it sits behind the pupil and focuses the light on the retina. The suspensory ligaments, they tighten or slacken. And that's important. They don't contract or relax because they're not muscles. They tighten and slacken. What does contract and relax is the ciliary muscles that the suspensory ligaments are attached to. And then at the back is the receptors, which is the retina, containing light-sensitive rods and cones. And then you've got the optic nerve that connects the eye to the brain. You'll need to know about accommodation, so it's the process of changing the shape of the lens to focus to near or distant. So again, learn these key things. To focus on a near object, ciliary muscles contract, suspensory ligaments slacken, lens becomes thicker, not thick, you need to say thicker, and more curved, and it refracts light rays more strongly or increases the angle of the light ray. To focus on distant objects is completely the opposite. So ciliary muscles relax, suspensory ligaments are therefore pulled tight or tighter, so lens is thinner and flatter and only refracts light rays slightly. Common defects, you'll need to know myopia and hyperopia and the treatment of the eye defects. I've done a really good set of videos on this. I'll put that information in the text box below. Control of body temperature, pretty simple. It's about the thermoregulatory center in your brain, and it picks up the body temperature. If it's too high, then several things happen. Your blood vessels dilate, so that's vasodilation, so they widen. Okay, they don't move. Okay, that's important to say. They just dilate. Sweat is produced from sweat glands, and therefore the energy transferred from the skin to the environment, so the body temperature falls. And it's the opposite for when the body temperature is too low. Maintaining water and nitrogen. So you need to know about how water is removed. So water is removed through the lungs during exhalation, and also skin in sweat, okay? And the body's got no control over these losses. Excess water, ions and urea are removed by the kidney. Levels of water in the body are balanced, but cells do not function efficiently if they lose or gain too much water. Here's a top tip: if you're looking for level 8 and 9, they're probably going to be talking about osmosis as well. I know it's paper 2, but they could ask you about osmosis. And then you need to know about how the kidneys filtrate, or they filter the blood, and you get selective reabsorption. So only a bit of some water, some ions might be reabsorbed, but all of the glucose is absorbed. No urea is reabsorbed. Okay, and it's controlled by ADH, which is another hormone, and it affects the amount of water absorbed by your kidney tubules. So again, you can see pituitary, more ADH released, kidney tubules reabsorb more water. That means you produce small volumes of urine, which is concentrated, and therefore more water is going to be reabsorbed. If, for example, water concentration is too high, less ADH is released, kidney tubules reabsorb less water, you produce loads and loads of urine. Again, you'll need to know about kidney dialysis and also kidney transplants as well. Again, check out my video in the text box. And yeah, there we go. So if you want to practice some exam questions, you can go to doctorbiology.uk, and there's lots of exam packs there on this topic. I hope you found that really useful. Please do keep subscribed. So next week I will be going on to the ecology section. So keep up your revision, and I'll see you soon.